Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of The Standard is the Standard. That's right, the BTSC flagship podcast. We've been doing it for years. I think this is like our 6th year, right? I don't know. Anyways, my co-host is Lance.
We've been counting 6 years for like 6 years, so it might be our 12th year, actually.
You know I'm not good with numbers, all right? I'm a speller.
That I do.
You're the number guy.
Yeah. Well, you count sets well. Like,
yeah,
you know how
I
to
do. If
superset,
it's simple, absolutely. That's
Yes.
right up my alley.
And you can count calories.
I can, and macronutrients and all that stuff. What's going on, Lance? How are you doing?
Hey, man, I just want to count my macronutrients. So that's how I'm doing.
Oh, well, that's a discussion. Every time we go on a show together, you're always bringing up nutrition. I feel like you want me to do a nutrition podcast. I can have you on. You can just ask me whatever questions you want. You brought up the TB12 method last time.
Yeah, nightshades, baby. Nightshades.
You're learning. You're learning something every day.
My fingers don't look like sausage this week.
All right. So with all that said, let's get to the news. And right now, this is being recorded on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Thursday, in prime time, for the first time, is the NFL Scouting Combine. And we're going to get to that. But to me, when the NFL Scouting Combine comes up, or as it's been called, the Underwear Olympics, when the Underwear Olympics rolls around, it's when the draft season starts. Yes, there were all-star games. There was the Shrine Bowl and the East-West and all that stuff. Those are all great. But it's when this combine starts, that's when people really start targeting on specific players. But before we get to the combine, and before we get to Kevin Colbert's comments, I want to ask you the headline question. Do you think Steeler fans, or maybe just you individually, let's start with just you, are you still excited for the draft, considering the Steelers don't have a lot of draft capital? They don't have a first-round draft pick. I know you're not a draft guy anyways, but you do follow what the Steelers do in the draft. What are your thoughts?
Ironically, I'm probably even more interested in the draft than normally. Because they don't have a first-round pick, I'm really interested in what they do and how they maximize the draft. So in a weird way, I'm more interested. I'm more interested in the quality of the second-round pick that they actually find. So I might actually watch the draft because I really want to see what they do with limited picks and with no first rounder. So it's a bit of an intrigue because they don't have a first rounder for me this year.
For those that are watching live on YouTube, you saw me shaking my head and laughing as Lance was talking. It's probably because, like I started the show with, we've been doing this for like 6 or 7 years. I honestly and at this point, I might as well just blindfold myself and throw darts against the wall when I try to predict what Lance is going to say. Because I would have guaranteed to put money down that Lance was going to say, man, the draft is the draft. Half these guys are going to be busts anyways. It doesn't matter. And then what does he do? He comes out and says, they don't have a first-round pick. I'm really excited. What? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yes, it's because unless you're really bad, there are a lot of teams that don't do well drafting. Right. I mean, it's well, yes. Yes. There's a lot of teams whose first rounders, you'll have them with 6 or 7 first rounders, and none of them are on the franchise. None of them on a team. But the one thing you can pretty much guarantee, except for El Busto, Kevin Colbert in a first round pick is pretty solid. Like, there's nothing really sexy or exciting about that.
Well, hold on a second. First round picks.
The first round picks are pretty solid. Now there's a range.
He did pick Artie Burns.
That's within that range, right? That's it. That's in that confidence interval. That's in that range. But then, you give him 12.
Good Lord, how big is the range, man? How big is the range? You're going from TJ Watt to Artie Burns. That's a gigantic range.
But then you had TJ, you had Bud. I mean, you had Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, you got Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, he's hit some. He's hit some guys. So pretty much, he's solid in the first round. Where the interest with Colbert is in the later rounds. Is can he find those gems and those jewels in the later rounds? And with no first round pick, I just want to see how good Kevin Colbert is. Can this second round pick be as good as a first round pick and really be cheap? And can they hit that proverbial home run in the draft with limited draft capital and with the second round pick. Just how good is Kevin Colbert? So I just want to see. This is really a prove it year to me from a player evaluation perspective, because he doesn't have the security of that first round pick. He has to put his money where his mouth is. And I just want to see if Kevin Colbert is that dude that Steeler Nation has faith in.
98671X says Lance sounds optimistic. Optimistics. Mark it down. 520. Mark the tape. Optimism coming from Lance Williams. That is scary.
Ding.
Steelers. Hey, if we ever want to change our show, Steeler Tank gave us a good title. He said it's the Mike Tomlin and Sean Swisham show.
That's pretty fun.
That is pretty good. I had to put that. I saw that. I was like, I got to put that in there somewhere. Okay,
that's pretty fun.
So when you talk about first round picks and you talk about, I feel personally that Kevin Colbert, you said he's really good in the first round. I'm not going to disagree. He's hit on more than he's missed. We'll put it that way. But he's really good at drafting specific positions, Yeah, third and fifth was the sixth. That's right. So he's really good at drafting receivers. We'd agree on that, right? I mean,
yes, they do a darn good job.
The Steelers are like a wide receiver factory. And even though you have a guy like James Washington, who might be a little bit of a late bloomer, I think he's turning it on. He's becoming, but then you get like Deontay Johnson, who really impressed in his rookie season, especially in the second half, and Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Wallace. I could keep going. You get the picture. They know how to draft receivers. I'd also go as far as saying they're really good at drafting offensive linemen in the very late or undrafted rounds. Ramon Foster was undrafted. B.J. Finney, Kelvin Beachum was, I think, a 6th or 7th round pick. Nat Filer was undrafted. Alejandro Villanueva, they got him off the waiver wire after the Philadelphia Eagles cut him as a defensive player. They can find talent in specific positions, and then there's some positions they are awful. What's number one, Lance? You know it. What's number one?
Defensive backs.
Yes. So I think that for some reason, and maybe it's a scouting department, what do you think? How do you get good at drafting certain positions and so bad at others? Who do you point the finger at? Is it the scouts? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the general manager himself? What are your thoughts?
My theory on a wide receiver position is because the coach played the position. When you've played the position, you have an idea of what it takes to succeed at the position, what it looks like, how a player runs routes, so on and so forth. Position, I think it makes it easier to evaluate. So I think that's why they're good at the wide receiver position. I think it's just the eyes that they have looking at the players. So I think it is the scouting department you have eyes for certain positions. Like I'm sure in lacrosse, you could look at certain players and you can get a visual perspective and say that player can play this position. He or she would be outstanding doing this. That works for me with baseball and it works for me with basketball. I could just look at guys and go, nah, he can't play. He's a role guy. Yeah. You could fit him here. He can do this. And that's just because of the way I see the game. So I think it's probably who you have in the building doing in your scouting department. Do you have a nice balance of defensive guys, offensive guys, special teams guys that have played different positions? So I would think the issue would be scouting. But interesting that you talked about the wide receiver position, because my brother, who's a fan of that team up north, he complains that as good as Belichick is, they couldn't find
receivers.
They can't draft receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't do it at all. So, you just have your sweet spot in terms of what you can see. They do a great job of drafting defensive linemen. He said they could draft a defensive lineman with 3 blindfolds on and just stick their hand out and they'll grab 2 and they'll be productive. So it's what you're good at coaching also, which is the other part. You can identify that a coach to talent. So, there's probably a gap in the coaching and scouting departments.
Yeah, and so I think that it'll be interesting for me with Terrell Austin in the fold now. How does Justin Lane play in year 2? That was he was around for that draft class last year, and so Justin Lane was his first pick under his tutelage, I guess if you want to call it that. And Tom Bradley is still new to the coaching staff, going into his 3rd year. So in terms of a secondary, we'll see if maybe things change. We'll see. Having Minkah Fitzpatrick back there helps. And a lot of people in the live chat are saying, hey, we have a first-round pick. We just got him a year late, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick. No one's going to complain about Minkah Fitzpatrick and where the Steelers should be drafting in the third round. No one's going to complain because you have Devin Bush. So keep that in mind. But to bring it full circle back to the initial question, which is the headline of the episode, is I'm still excited for the draft. I'll still watch the first round, because what if the Steelers trade into the first round, which you never know. I doubt it because it would take a lot of stock that they don't have. They'd have to start dipping into future years, but you don't want to do that too often. So I don't think that's really a possibility, but you never know. And I have to be prepared as part of my job in case that happens. So I'm still going to watch because for me, who is left? Every year there's those players that they projected to go in the first that drag onto the second. And you're watching, man, if this guy could fall to Pittsburgh at 2, it would be awesome. There's always intrigue around the NFL draft for me. Even if the Steelers, I just find it fascinating how teams evaluate. There's always that pick that make people go, wait, what? Wait, say that again? They picked who? Where? It's just like when they, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the Bears quarterback from North Carolina.
Trubisky.
Yeah, when the Bears traded up for Trubisky, I'm like, holy crap, did they just sold the farm to get this guy who's not even that good, and Mahomes went after him.
Yes, like 15. You know
how pissed off you'd be if you were a Bears fan?
Yes, you'd be pretty upset. You know what would be interesting if the Steelers gave up the second and traded back for multiple thirds. Steeler Nation would explode.
Yes.
Steeler Nation would explode.
Guard the bridges. Guard the bridges.
Oh my goodness. That would be drama. That would be absolute drama. But you said something interesting, Jeff, in terms of them moving to the first round and dipping into future draft years for draft assets to move up. Normally I would say no, but riddle me this, Jeff. I want to get your take on it. I wouldn't mind if they did it because
you're in a win now mode.
Yes, because if Bionic Big Ben is back, all those B's, Bionic Big Ben is back. If the Bionic one is back, you've got to go all in because the one thing that's the hardest thing I think in sports to find is a franchise quarterback. Franchise changing quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes now that Kansas City is identified and like the Steelers did 17 years ago with Bionic Big B. If you gotta sell out to continue to win if you think that guy is healthy. And I wouldn't mind if they dipped into future years to get him whatever he needs to try to get that 7th Lombardi.
Well, the funny thing is, and it's different. It's a different sport and it's a different I guess you would say philosophy in terms of moving your roster around. But in the NHL, you can see the Penguins, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I follow, are certainly doing this with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. They realize that they are on the back half of their contracts, and they're on the back half of their careers, and they will sell future to win now. They realize that you have two generational talents on the same hockey team. And they'll trade, hey, next year's first, you can have it. Take it. I don't care. We want this player that's going to help us win right now, this year, because we think we can win a cup. And there's something to be said about that. And I wonder if Ben Roethlisberger can come back and he can come back healthy enough that they feel that he is capable of keeping this team afloat and winning a championship, I would say they should go all in. Just do it.
Well, let me
push
ask
all your
you
chips
this.
through the middle. Because hey, listen to this though. If you let's say you win 1 out of 2. Let's say he plays 2 more years and you win 1. Okay, he goes off into the sunset and all of a sudden you suck. Guess what you're going to get? You're going to get some high draft picks.
Yeah, you're going to get a top 5 draft pick. Yes, and you might suck and then be able to get Trevor Lawrence. Wouldn't that work out?
Wouldn't that work out? Yeah, it would work out. It's not going to work out, but it would work out. It's not going to work out.
Nice. Let me ask you, Jeff, just to stay on that line for another question. Are they in that mode now? Did the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade indicate that they're in that mode now, that they're willing to sacrifice some future assets to get really good to be able to go after this championship with Bionic Big B on the roster. No. Big up to Ty.
Yeah. It's tough because when that trade happened, the same week that Ben Roethlisberger was deemed to be ruled out for the year, I can't think that for the life of me, Kevin Colbert said, we need to make this trade because Ben only has a few years left. I think the Steelers organization was like, look, our defense needs to get better. And if Ben can't come back, we need to have a defense that's going to be able to keep us relevant and keep us competitive. I think that was the underlying theme there. And then they said, if Ben can come back, and if he can be the quarterback that we're used to seeing, the defense will be in place. So they trade up to get Devin Bush in the draft. They trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Ben's back throwing a football. He's only thrown one, but I'm still happy about it. He's throwing a football. He's ready to go. I would not be shocked if you see them make more moves. Maybe not. I think their best bet, in my opinion, is trade. Free agency is going to be too expensive. Try to make a trade. Trade someone that you think would have any type of, you try to sell high, buy high, I guess. But that's the thing. Everyone wants to bring up trades, and I know I just did it, but you have to have a trading partner, number one, another franchise that's willing to part with a player, and you got to have someone that you think is going to be valuable coming back to you. So I don't know.
This line has just opened up some questions for me. I'm just, this has gotten my mind going. I'm thinking about some questions.
Sure.
And since we're talking about the draft, where do you think they had Minkah ranked on their draft board? It had to be really, really high for them to pull this trade and him to be available. Like best defensive player, best defensive back in the draft. I mean, it had to be really high because they never do this. That trade was so uncharacteristic. So he had to have been one of the top 5, top 10 players on their board, maybe top defensive player. He had to be really high.
I know that Tomlin loved him from the first time he met him. And I think that I guarantee he's top 5 overall, a top 5 defensive player on their board, and probably top 10 overall on their board. And that includes if you're ranking the quarterbacks that are available, even though you're not going to get them. He's that good. And we saw how good he is. I don't think anyone in Pittsburgh is saying, man, I wish that I wish they wouldn't have made that trade, because you have a proven commodity, an all-pro player. And that's what it comes down to here, folks. Yeah. You have an all-pro player. So when the Steelers are supposed to pick 18th in the first round, I'm going to publish an article that says, congratulations, Steeler fans. Minkah Fitzpatrick, your first-round draft pick, all-pro safety. We'll throw in some highlight reels. Enjoy it. Sit back, have your beverage of choice, and enjoy the fact that in year 3, which, by the way, is still young, year 3, you're going to have a great, great safety, and that you don't have to worry about, will he develop? Will he be ready? He's ready.
I got a challenge for you. And according to Brad Jewett, Tomlin said that Minkah Fitzpatrick was top 5 on their board. I'm just going to take him at his word that that's the case. But I got a challenge for you in the graphics department. Can you take his old draft photo that Minkah Fitzpatrick did and superimpose a Steeler hat onto his head?
Interesting.
That'd be pretty great. Like whatever the draft cap was for that year.
That would be a good image.
That'd be a great image. If you could pull that off, that'd be great to go for the article.
Absolutely. So we'll see. Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I don't want to spend too much time with, like you said, we're going down a rabbit hole that can just keep going.
Yes,
keep going.
As it has.
I don't think it's been bad. It's been good. It's been good discussion. But the Underwear Olympics are going to be happening in prime time. That's the NFL Combine, and I know you're not going to watch. I'm going to be doing a podcast tomorrow on the first night during it, so I'm not going to be able to watch that at all. But Lance, what are your thoughts on the Combine in terms of how much stock would you put into it?
I think the 2 biggest things you get out of the Combine is the medical. You want to get the medical information. You want to get true measurements on the players, and you want to get the medical information. You want to see if they're healthy, what their physical state is as you go into drafting those players. You got to ensure that they're healthy, and you got to get your medical people looking at them. So I think medical is essential. And I think I think the psychological evaluation is important as well. I think a lot of the football stuff you can glean from film, but you want to kind of see what type of person or individual that you're going to be including into your building, into your family, because you don't want to inject the wrong type of personality types into your family. It could ruin the whole thing. And you want to identify highly competitive people, and you want to identify people that want to play football and who love the game. So I think the interview process is very important, as well as the medical. A lot of the football stuff you can get from film. I think what was the guy named Mike Mamula? Was that the combine wonder from the Eagles years ago? I think he played for Boston College.
I think
and his combine numbers were outstanding, and he was a bust. I think the mistake that teams they make is they place too much value on the workout. Look at the film, get a medical, get the true measurements of a guy, and try to assess a guy's FBI and his competitive nature. If the guy loves the game, if he's willing to compete, and he wants to put his all into the game. I think if you do those things, the combine is really valuable.
To me, the Steelers have both ends of the spectrum here. And in both cases, they use combine results to really boost players up their board. Bud Dupree was a combine freak because he is an athletic freak. For his size, his speed, his strength, his agility, it's clear. I mean, it's right there for you. He was raw as all get out coming out of Kentucky. Didn't even have a position coach. Steelers said, look at that. We're going to take him. And they didn't think he would even be around. Bud Dupree thought he was going to Atlanta. That's why he wore a red suit and everything. When he dropped to Pittsburgh, I was like, shoot, Bud Dupree will take him. Then you have TJ Watt at the other end of the spectrum. A guy that didn't have a lot of experience in college playing as a pass rusher. A lot of people said, his combine results, he's just a combine hero. Kind of to the same effect as the player you mentioned from Philadelphia. Pittsburgh says, we love this kid's athleticism. He's a Watt. He's got the pedigree. That's something the Steelers have put some stock in the past 3 or 4 years in terms of like Edmonds, people that have families that have played in the NFL. And then TJ Watt explodes, period. And from the moment he stepped on the football field, even as a rookie, he was a difference maker, whether it was interceptions, pass defenses, getting to the quarterback, obviously last year having 13.5 sacks. I can see both ends of it. I can see putting too much stock into the physical attributes that you see in the underwear Olympics. And I can also see the fact that sometimes they need to have that chance to prove themselves in a one-on-one setting. It's a fine line. It is a very fine line that these scouting departments have to walk in regards to how much stock do you put into it. But I agree with you. The medical stuff, the interviews that they go through, some of the questions that they ask these players, someone should be taken to task for that. Have you heard some of the stuff that these guys get asked? Like, it's absurd.
I heard some of the questions. I heard some of the questions that the guy from Miami asked Dez Bryant, and I was surprised that Dez Bryant didn't kill the guy.
Well, but what's he gonna do? If you get so angry you hit a guy, you're done.
Yeah,
you're done. You're blackballed. Done. We know how the NFL works.
Yeah, I mean, that was some of those questions were like, wow, like I'm gonna tune you up in the hallway. Let me catch you in the bathroom stall. It's on.
This isn't Wonderlic stuff. This is the inappropriate personal questions that you're thinking like, wait, what? You asked me what? Like, I understand you want to see my response. Maybe you want to see how I handle myself in certain situations, but you don't have to go there. And if you don't know what we're talking about, Google it.
Yes.
Period.
It was really bad. I think the guy got in trouble, though. I think the guy in Miami ended up getting in trouble by the league for asking those questions. Because I think those questions that he asked Dez Bryant was just completely inappropriate.
Should have been.
Yeah.
So I'd say, you're talking about tangible stuff in regards to weight, strength, speed, agility. But at the same time, like you said, I'm not putting more stock in the combine than I am game film.
Right. Right.
It's almost like sometimes you see that happen. You see people that are like enamored with the combine and, oh my gosh, he bench pressed this much. Okay, if he bench pressed that much, why does he get pancaked every 5 plays when you watch his game film? I think film is more important. I know you agree with me.
One thing I would do, I would try to mentally overload a guy with a ton of information just to see how much they could retain. Sort of like the blackboard test. when they give quarterbacks. So I just want to see under pressure how much information that they can actually retain and regurgitate, because that's a critical skill in the NFL. You have so much limited time. You have such limited time to actually mentally process everything that you have to do in terms of a game plan. That's why there's always that give and tug in the NFL of, should we make it simple so guys can play fast, or should we make it complex? Because of the famous adage in the National Football League, if you're thinking, you're stinking. Yeah. So, so I would put guys under mental tests to see if they could, just to see how much they could retain. And I try to identify what type of learners they are. Are they visual? Are you the classic textbook learner? Are you a memorization guy?
That's good. I thought about that.
That's the type of stuff that I would want to know, because I want to identify what is the best way for you to retain information.
That's really good. So I think if you take away anything from this little conversation we're having is that it is important. The combine is important, but the most of the stuff that's important, according to myself and Lance, is not being shown on television.
No.
The stuff that you're watching on television is it's fun to watch.
For TV.
It's for TV. I love watching guys run the 40 because I think it's they're athletic freaks. You watch these guys run, like, holy cow, that guy's flying. But at the same time, how often do you see a defensive lineman run a straight line for 40 yards in a football game? Never.
Never. Because they're taking off kickoffs. So exactly, that's why. Yeah. That's the only time you see them run 40 yards straight.
Yeah. So, all right. Now let's get to what's really important about the combine, and that is that head coaches for most teams, and general managers stand behind a podium and they answer questions from the media. Now, Mike Tomlin is one of, I believe, two, the other coach up north, that does not meet the media during the combine. Everyone else, you're hearing quotes from all the coaches talking about their teams and their scouting departments, and not Mike Tomlin. But you did hear from Kevin Colbert. Kevin Colbert on Tuesday went to the podium, answered questions. And what was the very first question, Lance? I believe I called it on Sunday. What was the first question about?
Ben Roethlisberger and
Bionic Ben.
Bionic Ben.
The first question wasn't about a draft pick. It wasn't about a prospect. It was about Ben Roethlisberger's return, and he had to chuckle to himself. Like, if I were Kevin Colbert, I would laugh a little bit. Like, well, this is Pittsburgh, this is it. Ben Roethlisberger, he kept on saying, he put out that video. And I'm like, no, you idiot. You all put out that video. The Steelers put out that video. That wasn't Ben Roethlisberger. Come on, it's all orchestrated. But anyways, he made a quote that I wanted to ask you about. And a lot of people question this. I could see his reasoning behind it, but it was basically after a year off, essentially, a year off from the wear and tear of his body, even though he had a surgically repaired throwing elbow, we might see a better Ben Roethlisberger in 2020 than in previous years.
See, this is why we've been doing the show for so long. We picked up on the same the same things.
So what are your thoughts when you heard him say that? Are you thinking, boy, this guy is blowing some smoke? Or do you think maybe he's right?
You know what? Given my personality, we do the Homer and the Hater show on Sundays. I've learned to underpromise. Right. And so you could be surprised by what it is. It tells me that they know a lot. Well, they obviously know a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know if fishy is the right word, for him to come out and use that term. They know something that we don't know. Like, they're really confident. That hay might be in the barn already. In keeping with the B themes, that hay might be in the barn. He might really be right already.
You think Ben's just ripping passes right now? Like, he's just letting it loose, just ripping passes.
I don't think he's letting it loose, but I don't think there was any way that Colbert did not know that he was going to throw a football.
Because when he knew that. We knew he was going to start throwing it February 21st.
When he kind of intimated that, I was like, no, they know for sure. I don't think Ben is ripping a football, but I think Ben is probably a lot further along than what's being reported, and that's why he comes out that confidently. And it's not just the words that he said. If you guys watch the video of the interview, oh, he felt good about it. Like it's like when you know you're getting a bunch of money that's going to be cast in your account the next day, and you kind of had a different walk, that little swag, like, yes, I got some money coming, and it is coming tomorrow, and I know it. That's kind of how he felt. He's like, look, I've deposited a big check, and guess what? Our guy is going to be back very soon.
And man, you look at the timing of everything. You look at the timing of the throw, as we can call it now this offseason, the throw, because he didn't he didn't throw it any more just than one singular, the throw. It all comes out right before the combine. And so, like you said, they know more than we do. That's obvious. No one's debating that. They know that Ben's probably a lot. Yeah, Ali says when you get that Friday paycheck. That's right, Ali. Coming up 2 days. So you look at it and say, man, we're going to the combine. We're looking for weapons. Now we're looking for weapons because Seven's going to be back. We need weapons. We need to get another receiver out there. We need to get a tight end. We need to get an offensive line to keep Seven healthy and upright. That changes everything. As a general manager, I got to feel like that, like you said, it's like you're almost playing with house money at this point. You're like, yep, we got our guy back. He's going to be good to go. And now we got to get our team ready around him. That's the vibe that I got from Kevin Colbert. That's
he felt very positive. Think about it this way. Ben's your first round draft pick, right? You got actually your 2 first round path picks are Ben Roethlisberger and Minkah Fitzpatrick. So he's like, look, he's like, okay, hey, those are our de facto 2 first round draft picks. Okay, let's hit on somebody in the second round. But Jeff, is he being truthful? So from a physical trainer perspective, when he talked about the no wear and tear, the positive impact that could have on his rehab, and just him because he's better healthy overall. Was that factual? Did you find his comments factual?
No, it is factual. I mean, you look at a guy with the injury history of Ben Roethlisberger, knees, ankles, shoulder, ribs, head, neck. I mean, I could keep going. Wrist, thumb, ego. Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, he's had all these injuries throughout his career, and they linger. They definitely linger. And even though there's an off season, even though, he's on the golf course and he's relaxing, when you get a whole season where you're not playing, yeah, there's going to be some rust. But at the same time, your body's getting a chance to actually heal. And I think this is why a lot of times you hear guys that are retired after that first season, they say they feel like they could come back and play. It's because their body is finally healing up. Now, Ben, the biggest question is, and someone said in our live chat a couple episodes ago, that this reconstructive surgery that he had done, the tendons being reconnected, could actually have his arm come back stronger. I don't know if that's factual or not. I don't know the surgery that he had. No one's ever said. Some assume it's Tommy John. Some assume it's something else. I don't know. But what I do know is that if his elbow is healthy, then what he said, Kevin Colbert, could be 100% true from a physical standpoint. The fact that he should be rejuvenated, he should be fresh. And you think of a guy like Ben, when was the last time he could probably say that he could be like feeling fresh going into a season?
Year 3.
Maybe. That was back when he was getting pummeled. He was getting pummeled.
Yes, nah, he hasn't. He had, and I've heard and read stuff from different players that's why repeating as Super Bowl champion is so difficult, because you can't get healthy. You have a limited amount of time to get healthy from the end of the playoffs till that first OTA minicamp, and guys are getting surgery and rehabbing, and that time is really fast. So a lot of times, teams that go deep in the playoffs are essentially coming back to camp still hurt from the previous season, and they never had a chance to really rest and get their body right. So although, as fans, we want our teams to continually go deep in the playoffs and win every year, at a certain point, teams do need to recharge and actually get healthy so they can make a run over the next couple of years. Because, like you said, Jeff, These things add up on you physically, and they take away from your overall health. But what also struck me was what Colbert talked about mentally, just about the hunger that he sees in Ben, from Ben being on the outside, the outside looking in, and kind of getting recommitted to the game and kind of learning the game and learning to love and appreciate the game again. That resonated with me more so than the physical part. And also from a perspective of just being able to watch film and evaluate your own play over the course of a season.
Well, we never expected this to happen. We said that maybe he would enjoy time with his family. Maybe he would enjoy being away, that the wear and tear on his body he basically, I don't need this. What seems like, if everything they say is true, it's the opposite. He's realized how much he misses it, and he wants to come back and prove that he can still play. And I guarantee he's heard the critics and the idiotic takes that are going out around the NFL Network and stuff like that. Ben's ready to prove something, and that typically is good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And what Jeff isn't telling you guys is he got a call from Ben last week for JH12. For the nightshade diet. So
it would never be 12. It would be like 21.
JH21. And that's why Kevin Colbert wasn't concerned too much about his weight, because the nightshades were keeping the overall inflammation, including his belt size, down. And so it was funny how Kevin Colbert just poo-pooed the weight stuff. Like, I'm not worried about any guy's weight in the off season. They'll figure it out. He just dismissed that one completely.
Well, something that he didn't dismiss, and a little bit of segue away from Bionic Big Ben, is he kind of talked out of both sides of his mouth when referring to Bud Dupree and the franchise tag. He was asked, "Are you going to tag Bud Dupree?" He says, "I'm not sure what our plan is right now. We have some time." And they said, "Are you planning on using the franchise tag?" He says, "I don't know. We'll see." Essentially, that's what he says. That's not verbatim. That's not an exact quote.
Let me read the quote, because I'm actually looking at it. He said, "Bud created a great decision for us because he had a great season, and that's exciting. Where we go with that, who knows? He's getting a feel for what the market would be. We're getting a feel for what the market would be. We're getting a feel for what our cap would be. We don't know, but we love having that option available to us. We want Bud Dupree to finish his career with the Pittsburgh Steelers." A lot of touching and feeling in that quote, for one. Pause. A lot of touching and feeling.
That's true. He kind of says, "I'm not sure if we're going to do it." He was asked earlier in the press conference about, we're not sure if we're even going to use a franchise tag. I think he wants him to finish his career in Pittsburgh. I don't know what to take of that. I think that they're going to honestly see, what would we have to do to even create the space to franchise tag him?
Yes.
Because they'd have to create over $16 million. And he might say that he wants him to retire a Steeler. Like, they want him to give him a new contract and keep him in Pittsburgh. I don't know. What they're doing.
Yeah, who knows? People were laughing at me in the live chat with the use of pause. I mean, that's just my hip hop in me. I mean, I grew up with the pause language. If you're an old school hip hop fan, you understand what the pause language is. That's just my old. I can't outlive it. So when I say and hear curious things, I always go pause. So it's just the pause language. But Jeff, you want me to give the listeners, since we talked about the tag, you want us to break it down in terms of the tags and what they are and what you think when they're talking about the tag, what they would give Dupree?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So there are a couple of tags, when it comes to these guys. It's the non-exclusive franchise tag, which is the most expensive and which rarely happens. I mean, that rarely happens. And so the compensation for the non-exclusive franchise tag, which means a player can't negotiate with any other team, and you basically don't lose that player. I mean, you and if somebody wants to get that player, it's next to impossible. Then you have the exclusive franchise tag. It's the 1-year tender offer for the amount no less than the average of the top 5 salaries at that position, or 120% of a player's previous salary, whichever is greater. The player's team has all negotiation rights to the players. The bump in pay scale, current average salary versus average 5 years of data, means only that the creme de la creme get this tag. Think of Drew Brees or Von Miller. And so going to overthecap.com, some of the numbers for the franchise tag for the linebacker position would be 16.2 as opposed to the transition tag, which is 14 million. And the transition tag is the lowest of the tags. And it just described think of this as you are pretty good and we might want to keep you, but aren't willing to put a ring on you ourselves tag. The transition designation is a 1-year tender offer to a player for the amount of the average top 10 salaries as opposed to the top 5. And in this particular year, given that it's in the last year, I believe that teams can utilize both tags, the exclusive and or the transition tag, because it's the last year of the CBA. Of those two tags, what makes the most sense to you?
I brought this up in an article with Dupree, and this was Monday or Tuesday, about a possible tag and trade option where they could put the franchise tag on the exclusive rights franchise tag and then say, hey, we're going to try to trade him now. And it's happened twice in the past 2 seasons, I think, with a couple pass rushers in the NFL. I think Clowney was a tag and trade, wasn't he?
I'm not sure.
Okay. It's happened. It's happened more frequently than it hasn't in recent years. So I'm thinking maybe that's an option. If not, I think they're just going to do the standard exclusive rights franchise tag. I don't think they're going to try to mess around with anything else. Lance, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, that's what they'll probably do. I mean, if you're going to go out and tag them and commit to keeping them, then you're going to do the exclusive franchise tag. You're going to try to control whether that player has a power to negotiate with other teams.
Yeah. I'm all in for the tag and trade. The problem is that you have to have a trading partner that is willing to do 2 things. 1, have enough cap space that they can take on that franchise tag, and 2, want to give them a long-term contract.
And that's the critical thing about the tag, is you have to have the space.
Right.
You can't tag them and then make the space. The space has to be available. So you'll be able to read through the tea leaves if the Steelers are trying to do that, because they will be waiving players prior to do that.
Well, they're going to have to.
Because they don't have the space. Yeah. So the writing will be on the wall, so to speak, if they're going to use the tag for Bud Dupree. I'm on record, and I have previous shows. Yeah, I said it's where they should not tag Bud Dupree. I think tagging Bud Dupree would be a mistake.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Kevin Johnson with a shout out to Lance. What's up, my man? North side.
I see you, Kevin. Yes, Manchester, baby. Chester County, Manchester Elementary School. Yes, 15212.
I feel like I should shout out my elementary school now. Elm Grove Elementary, 2603. What up, Wheeling, West Virginia?
Yes,
just not the same. I don't know what's going on.
You're just like Pittsburgh South. I mean, essentially.
Hey, you said it yourself. Don't mess with West Virginia fans.
Yeah, West Virginia Steeler fans are on record. It is a fact. Hashtag fact. West Virginia Steeler fans are absolutely crazy.
Yes. Yes, we are. Let's get to one more thing about Kevin Colbert. This was not in his press conference that I saw. It is all about the interview he did with Missy Matthews of Steelers.com, in which she brought up someone that no one is talking about. There you go. Shout out to Queens from Ezra. Very nice. There you go. She brought up an injured player that no one's talking about. Everyone's talking about Ben Roethlisberger. Everyone's talking about Bud Dupree. What are they going to do? Hello, Stephon Tuitt. Torn pectoral muscle, missed the entire season. Kevin Colbert said he's looking good. He's on track to be back in the offseason workouts. They're really excited about having him back. How important is Tuitt to this team and him being healthy in 2020?
Oh, it's absolutely important. He's your replacement for Javon Hargrave. I mean, that's your Hargrave replacement. They're going to kick somebody inside, and they're going to have Reckett and Tuitt bring damage on the inside. So they're going to want in some sort of package, they're going to try to replace his snaps with Tuitt. So they have to get Tuitt back. And for the cap hit that Tuitt it cost them. He has to return. And the unfortunate thing about Tua, it feels like has always been on the verge of becoming the guy that they think he is, the guy that he's being paid. And I mean, with the $15 million cap hit, he better be that guy. So I'm glad that I heard in that interview that they said that he was on track and they expect him to be a participant in most of the offseason stuff. I think that's great news for that defense, because I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Gravedigger played his last snap for the Steelers a couple of months ago.
Sad but true. So, to it, man, there's something about that guy as a trainer. Man, these upper body injuries, you had the elbow. Double HH says, I agree. West Virginia fans are more insecure than regular. They are more insecure. You know why? They don't have a team of their own. And so because they cling, here I am. It was a quick sidebar. Living in Wheeling, if you don't know where Wheeling, West Virginia is, it's a little piece of West Virginia that's pinched between Ohio and Pennsylvania. Growing up, I could be in Ohio in 5 minutes and Pennsylvania in 10. Okay. And so you kind of are right in the middle. And so no one went to Ohio for fanhood, because why would you? No one wants to be a Browns fan or a Bengals fan. You went to Pittsburgh, and that's who you rooted for. All those teams up there in Western PA. You don't have your own team. You're almost looked at as a second class citizen. But we're going to show you that we are a diehard fan. We're nuts. We're crazy.
Jeff's right. Jeff's right, because
I know I'm right up front there.
Jeff's absolutely right, because in Pittsburgh we do look at cats from West Virginia as second class citizens. It's really bad. It's really bad. Like if you're from Pittsburgh, you absolutely know, it's just terrible. They would make people from West Virginia the butt of every joke. It was just a regular phrase. You must be from West Virginia. I mean, anything, with anything, it was sad but true. But if you needed some fans to have your back at a Steeler game, you
find those West Virginia fans.
Find the West Virginia fans.
Oh my gosh.
Find the West Virginia fans.
Barry Fox says WU is a big college party town from what I've heard. Yes, Morgantown, West Virginia is a party capital. They know how to do it there. I didn't go to school there. Went to several parties there. They know what they're doing. We'll put it that way.
Copious amounts of brews.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's talk about one more topic, and maybe we'll answer some questions if we have time. The collective bargaining agreement has been crazy. Let me give you the rundown and where we are now, and then I will get your thoughts and feelings on everything, Lance. So the NFLPA and their representatives and the NFL had been meeting for months, and then the NFL passed the first proposal. The owners passed it, had majority vote. Not everyone voted for it, by the way. Keep that in mind. I doubt Jerry Jones wanted to give the players another penny. And so they voted, passed, goes to the NFLPA. A lot of people assume that when that happened, that was the very first proposal. No, it might have been the first official proposal. They met for months because they didn't want to go back and forth. And the players let it be very clear what they wanted. The owners made it very clear what they wanted. They came together. They thought they had a good package set up. The players look at it and they say, well, this isn't exactly what we thought it was. We're not going to take the deal. They want to go back to the negotiating table, which happened Tuesday night. 4-hour meeting, a 4-hour meeting. And a lot of reports are coming out that Aaron Rodgers was upset in the meeting because he wants more time off in the offseason, which I laugh at. But anyways, a lot of players are upset. A lot of big name players are upset, and for a lot of reasons. But it passed the player representatives, and now it's going to the players. So every single NFL player, over 2,000 players, will get to vote online whether they are for or against the collective bargaining agreement. If it passes, we have labor peace for probably another 10 years. If it doesn't, then the reality of the situation is the likelihood of them getting a deal done before March 18th, which is the self-imposed deadline that the owner said. They're going to have to try to get a deal done after 2020 and hope that there's no lockout. Everyone that I've read that's in the know on this situation says if it gets to that point, expect a lockout. And that's going to be bad for business, for us, for the BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. No one wants that. So a lot of people think that this will get done because these middle tier players, They want that pay increase that was promised. They're okay with that extra game because it's another paycheck. They're okay with the expanded playoff format because if their team gets in, they get more money. They're okay with the benefits and the college tuition reimbursement. There's so much more than a 17-game schedule and expanded playoffs in the CBA. But Lance, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the collective bargaining agreement?
There's probably going to be a lockout.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, when you're negotiating with an entity that gives you a timeline of which you could have the deal done, like we're going to tell you we need a deal by March 18th, there's probably going to be a lockout. I mean, I just knew. I mean, we've lived through a couple of these. It just doesn't behoove you to sign the deal a second sooner. I mean, I don't care if I had everything. You just wait until the last minute to see if you could squeeze out more things from the owners. I mean, you just take it to, I mean, you don't lose anything from negotiating to the very last minute. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to take all the time that they need to hammer out this negotiation. And they could have a deal done. They might not, but they're going to take all the time. And if a deal gets signed, it'll get signed on March 16th so they could celebrate and have brews on St. Patty's Day on March 17th.
Here's my issue. So I don't know if you saw the video, but Marquise Pouncey went on his Instagram stories and just went off on how he thinks the CBA is trash. He even trashed the NFLPA representatives. And I want to say, like, okay, Pouncey, are you going to these meetings? Are you volunteering your time to be a player rep? Because like I said at the beginning of this segment, the players, the representatives, and the NFLPA and the NFL owners have been meeting for months to talk about some of these issues. And just now you're going to be upset? Like, that's a disconnect I don't buy. If you were that invested, if you were that angry, why aren't you there? Why aren't you showing up in support of the players and the players' rights and all this stuff? I don't get that. I don't get it at all. You know, I'm part of a union and I'm an active part of the union because that's my voice in things like contract negotiations. And if I don't vote and if I don't attend the meetings and or watch online because they have them all online, then what am I doing as a part of the union? You know, I can sit there and complain. I've always said this my whole life. It's easy to sit there and complain. It's another to come up with a solution to the problem. So I don't want to hear these players whining and moaning about millions of dollars when this was negotiated by your representation. I don't get that, man.
I don't know. I mean, you're part of a union. I mean, everybody's voice isn't necessarily heard. I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting. You know, what Reed Overhand talks about it, that Ramon Foster is the rep and defended the process while Pouncey mouthed off. I mean, maybe Pouncey did not agree to the terms at which, you know, maybe he just didn't agree. Maybe he's been informed and he did not agree. I mean, I wouldn't want to assume that his disagreement is based on his absence. It just might mean he just doesn't agree.
And that's right. I mean, no one's going to agree on everything in any type of union negotiation. But at the same time, like if you feel that strongly about it, and if you've watched the video, not safe for work, by the way, some language in that video, then do something about it. You know, I mean, go out there and say to Foster, hey, I'm going to come to the meeting with you. I want to voice my concern because Aaron Rodgers supposedly did that. Like you can do that.
This is what they're doing. So, yeah, I mean, you know, that's how it works kind of now. You can, if you make enough noise via social media, that's your negotiation, right? And they're still in negotiation period. So he realizes that he can use his platform in social media to hopefully push the negotiation in a certain way. Because I think guaranteed they're going to take all the time. I'm just pretty sure. I mean, that's just how my mind thinks, that they're going to take all the time. And if they get a deal, it'll be at the last minute. The NFL loves the news. So it'll just be news for the NFL, just for it's really dead that season. I mean, this is the NFL. It'll get done, but it will get done in the time that it gets done. And I think that'll be March 16th at 12:50 at 11:59 p.m.
I want to make sure that everyone understands like what I just talked about in no way, shape, or form has anything to do with how much these players get paid. In my opinion, you have a skill set that is valuable, and you take it and you maximize that skill set. Players should be paid as much as they can get. I've talked about players that are my financial heroes, guys like Matt Flynn, guys like Kirk Cousins, who we talked about right before we went on the air.
Ryan
These guys are
Switzer.
Yes, exactly. They're working the system. They have a skill set, albeit maybe not the best. They have a skill set that has gotten them to that level, and they deserve every penny. I am not comparing them to me or to you or to anyone out there listening or watching. It's all about, in my opinion, how these negotiations have gone on. And there's definitely a disconnect between the representation and the players. And that's what needs to be fixed, because a union's only as strong as they are together.
Yes.
And they're not together right now. So that's the issue I have. Just want to break that up. So, all right, Lance.
And we have a skill set that's unique. And if you guys keep hitting the like button, maybe we can yell at each other when Jeff is trying to negotiate with said company that we represent. And I'm like, nah, man, I need more time off. I don't want to do 12 shows a week. I need more time off.
Yeah.
So, because we're going to probably be going to 15 shows soon.
No. We have a good schedule. But, hey, speaking of the platforms, everyone's been sticking with us, We're still doing great for the off season. This is the best we've ever done in the off season. So we still have a lot of people in the live chat. We had over 100, more than one occasion here tonight on this show. So we appreciate everyone for sticking with us, because really there is no off season in the NFL. There's just the month of February, and then that turns into a lead into the draft. And then you get free agency, you get the schedule comes out, then you get the draft itself, OTAs, mini camp, summer. Next thing you know, they're back to camp, and we're going to be there every step of the way. So Lance, why don't you, send us out?
And as always, listeners, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
We will see you next week for another episode of The Standard is the Standard. Have a good one, everybody.